Hey everyone, it's Shmoley here, and I wanted to make a video about my opinions on the current situation of Overwatch, how it is, and more or less why it's failing and how I think it's failing. Now, I see a lot of people criticizing Overwatch, whether that be pro players, which have good merits and usually don't know how to express themselves, and sometimes they do. There are very considerable ones like Menokusai that know how to do that. There's also many content creators, YouTubers, and streamers that have no idea what's going on, but make good points here and there. And as I say with anything, do not take all of your information from one source. But to get into this a little bit, yes, I am not a plat player. I've hit GM. In Season 7, I hit Grandmaster, which was my goal. I played from Season 1, 2, and 3, took a break in Season 4, came back 5, 6, and 7. At the start of Season 7, I got Grandmaster. I took a break from the game, and I haven't come back to playing at that same competitive level because it hasn't been fun. I did professional analysis in the past on my stream. I would break down how games happen so I understand how the competitive system should work and how a game should play out at the highest level. I played DPS and tank all the way up into Grandmaster, and ever since when I've casually played at a high Master's level, it's been mainly healer because no one wants to seem to play healer in my games. I don't know. In the past, I've also played in 6v6 team environments in both like scrims and like a league system, which didn't turn into a lot. But those experiences are fantastic, and I'll touch a little bit on why you should experience that. Let's get into the first thing I want to talk about though before this goes too long of me just ranting. I want to get into the queue system, like how you search for games, because that is how you firstly interact with the game. Like, yeah, you can look at the shinies and stuff, but how you queue before you're actually playing the game is how you interact with the game, right? So the competitive queue system, what is wrong with it? There's a whole lot wrong with it. Let's go for SR changes they've made over the time, for ladder changes. So initially with the ladder, you would get skill rating for each game based on your performance, right? Sounds like a pretty fair system, and it was. But they didn't like people abusing it because, you just want how many gold medals you have, which I will get into later, how that medal system's a problem. But back to topic. Now they changed it to basically whether you win or lose, it doesn't really matter, which doesn't make any sense to me. Because if I almost carry a Torb one trick to a win, but then I lose, I feel like I should lose less than that Torb one trick. But do I? I probably lose the same amount, which doesn't make any sense to me. You're trying to encourage a competitive ladder, but it really doesn't matter. I get it. You're trying to encourage people to switch to tanks and healers and carry and stuff like that, but it doesn't discriminate one tricks or guys that just will not change at all because they lose the same amount of you. It makes no sense. You might as well just keep going until you get people that will switch for you because it will happen because people don't like losing. The competitive queue system needs a serious change. In my opinion, the competitive queue system should be about individual skill and about small groups. I'm talking about like one or two people, a solo or a duo queue. Maybe three if you really want to push it. I'm not a fan of it, but you could make the point if you really tried. But the fact that you can get ranked up against 4, 5, and 6 stacks, like an entire team can queue against you, it makes no sense. And it's like, well, everyone should be queuing 6v6. No, you make a separate ladder for that. But we'll get to that later about how that could work. You want a solo or duo system because you want to pull out the individual skill. You want individual components coming together to make a team. That way individual components can show what they can do. It'd also be very good to, see how people can flex, You're not just going to go into a game, every single game, with this 3 stack that's always going to carry. That's going to be like a healer, a tank, and a DPS that's almost always going to carry because they're so used to playing together. They know exactly how to play, and you can just win the game yourself with those 3 players that can all work together. It's so dumb how it currently is, and I really have a problem with it. But it gets worse when you think about how they're trying to involve the game, right? You're trying to be like, oh, we want this to be a team game. Well, you have to have an individual side to almost every game. Pick this side to be the individual game. Copy another game, a successful game like League of Legends, and pick this system up. Now, I said a little bit about how I thought that there should be a 6v6 ladder, and there should be. This game is based around a competitive 6v6 format. And having played in competitive 6v6 format, I can tell you there is no greater fun than having a close game in a competitive 6v6 environment where you're communicating all with your team. And sure, you're going to tell me, oh, well, the ladder can be like that. The ladder can't be like that. Be a realist. I'm not an optimist. I never have been. But I'm also not a retard. And I know that's not going to happen in an actual ladder. It's never going to happen. Stop pretending like it is. Make a 6v6 competitive ladder. Make it so you create a team, and then you can have 12 players on a team, mimic the Overwatch roster for the maximum amount of players. Make sure they have to play a specific amount of games to get the rewards from that. That's another thing. You need to make specific rewards for teams and solo, because you want people that are going to be playing this individual skill and developing their skill in the solo and duo queue system to come over into the team environment, play the game how it's supposed to be played, and get rewarded for that differently from how they would get rewarded from just playing solo queue. So they have incentive to build skill and to play as a team. You want that in a game like this. Speaking of, you want to build skill in the solo queue system or duo queue system or whatever you want to call it. I'm just going to call it a solo queue for the rest of this video just to stop myself from saying 4 things to say the same word. But you want to have a role queue system in that. It is so absolutely frustrating to join a game and get 5 mercy mains because you instantly know you're going to lose. I get it. The role queue system won't be perfect. Either you're going to lock players into a role, right? Well, why don't you have them access to every hero, right? Healers and tanks, because there's less of, do a reward system. They do it in WoW, where healers and tanks get a reward for the first dungeon that they do when they need players like that. We'll make this for the first couple games. Healers and tanks get a loot box for role queuing into that. That way you get people that normally wouldn't even diversify to also actually diversify. Wow, what a thought, right? Play different heroes in a game that has almost 30 heroes. But you actually get better quality teammates because people that want to play tanks will go play as tanks. People like me that actually prefer to play healer nowadays and hate main tank will queue for healer, or they'll queue for damage, and damage will have a long ass wait because everyone wants to play DPS. P.S. If you haven't hit Masters before Season 4 in playing DPS only, you're probably too shit at the game. Just saying. That's my opinion. Fight me about it. You probably won't win. Why is there no ranked reset? Now, I'm a person that understands about being lazy, because I am lazy normally. People don't want to work for everything they just had. But let me tell you a story real quick. Last day of competitive Season 10, I logged on. I did my 10 placement games. I logged off. I did nothing else that season. I lost like 50 points even though I went positive on placements. I don't know what that was about, but whatever. And there's no incentive for me to play the game in that sense. Why should I start day 1 and have to play multiple games and worry about decay if all I care about is the rewards? Which a lot of people do care about cosmetics and rewards, and probably the reason why they play competitive is to get gold guns. Why are they incentivized to do anything more than what I did? Yeah, sure, you can grind out the wins, but 300 wins, do you really think people are going to grind that out? Especially with how Overwatch is so 50-50 nowadays. It's more like 600 games played if you have a 50-50 win rate. That's pretty ridiculous to ask someone to grind. That's just not a reward at that point. That's just torture. That's like giving a piece of candy to someone you just waterboarded for 6 hours and then say, get ready for the next session. This is your reward for not dying in the last one. It's awful. No ranked reset is so dumb. You should have to grind through from 0 to top 500, play every game all the way up there every season, be incentivized to do it because you're not there anymore. Your rank resets. You have to work all the way back up there if you want to stay at that rank. And I think that's fair. I don't understand why you should keep the same rank. Depending on the season, your heroes that you play might be completely bad, but because of how Overwatch works and how it's so coin flip right now, and the fact that you're already up there and you're more or less skilled enough to go 50-50 on win rate, you're not going to move. But if you're playing that same hero at like 1,000 less SR and you're still 50-50 win rate with that hero because of how flip-flop Overwatch is, you probably deserve to be down there, but you'll never fall back down there because of the safety net that other players are, more or less, because they don't want to lose SR, and individual rating has been nerfed in such a way where it doesn't matter as much. It's just awful. Speaking of individual rating and individuals that should be canned off the face of this earth, one tricks. Why is there not a low priority queue for them? So if someone gets reported enough times, why should they not be put in a low priority queue that takes longer to get to, and they are matched with other low priority queue members that are either bad teammates because they've been reported for bad teammates or game sabotage or something like that. And this is coming from probably one of the more toxic Overwatch players you'll meet on the ladder. I'm very toxic if I'm in voice, which is usually why I choose to be out of voice when I play on all my Smurf accounts, because I don't want to talk to people, because people are dumb and I hate people. Deal with it. But coming from a guy that would probably be sent to the low priority queue system, why does it not work? Dota 2 has a very successful low priority queue system. Let me back up for a second. If you don't understand what a low priority queue system is, if you get reported, you get matched with other people that have been reported. Makes sense, right? You were being a bad teammate, report you for being a bad teammate, you get matched with other bad teammates. It probably takes you longer to find matches because there's a bunch of less people that have been reported than actually playing the game, and it gives you incentive to be a good person to get out of low priority queue after a certain amount of games. You're back to the upper priority queue, be a good teammate, not get reported again and get sent back to the hellhole. That's probably more or less a flip-flop of who got the better DPS main and who was actually going to flex for the team, because you know the majority of the team is probably going to be one-tricks if that system gets made. And I don't think a Torb and a Symmetra on each team is really that valuable, depending on the map, you know. Torb control, not really the best thing in the world. The design team seems to have a bit of a problem when it comes to tunnel vision. Now, I myself don't have perfect eye vision, but I have pretty good eye vision, so I don't see what they're seeing. But my god, what the fuck did they see when they made the old Mercy? The one that had the two instant reses when she wanted to? Yeah, the one that reset res with Valkyrie? The one that was broken from the game? Now I understand. Tunnel vision's a hard thing, you know? You're flying around in Mercy Valkyrie on the test server and you're like, I don't want to stop to res. That felt like shit. Let's make it instant. But you don't think, she's flying around at Mach 2. She swoops in for a res instantly on a 500 HP tank, and then flies back away, whisks away without basically any ability to be killed, and she's a super hard target while she's flying around at Mach 2, let me tell you what. And you think that's fine? What fucking drugs are you on? Go back to kindergarten, where you failed the grade, retake it, see if you pass, and then try to apply back to the Overwatch Blizzard team, because you don't deserve to be there. Anybody that worked on that should have their asses canned from the fucking company because they don't understand what the game is supposed to be about. Res, in the first place, is probably the stupidest idea I've ever heard to have in an FPS game. Then you make the character OP, and then you leave it that way for an entire month. What is that garbage? Speaking of leaving for something too long, how about the 3 months we had Nano Boost Reinhardt meta? When Anna's Nano Boost still had a 50% movement speed on it, we had less things with movement abilities. So if you nanoed a Reinhardt, he ran through the whole team, murdering everyone, and there was about nothing you could do through it. Now, eventually we learned how to counter that, right? And then the option for that was then, let's nano boost a Reaper, because Reaper could go from point 1 or second point, King's Row, under the underpass to the bookstore in one Nano Blossom. That's pretty stupid. That's why we had Beyblade meta. And then Genji was less bad because Genji's already a mobile hero. You're just adding 50% movement speed, and he already more or less abused the dash for it. But it helped in a way to make Nano Blades more consistent than they are now, because you can, in the current meta, they're not very consistent. Especially because we've gotten used to dealing with them, and back then we weren't quite used to dealing with them. But why was that there for 3 months? You know, just make the change. You know it's broken, make the change. Who gives a shit about the season? Overwatch is about being adaptable, right? That's why we can swap heroes in the middle of the match, and we're not locked into heroes like Dota or League of Legends. So I have a problem. Moira is a problem to me. Her entire design is simply too simple. An auto aiming right click. Let me just say that again. An FPS with an auto aiming right click. That's probably the dumbest design thing I've ever heard in my life. And then people are gonna argue, oh well, it's not auto aiming. I kind of have to aim. You kind of have to aim. You just don't have to aim. Let's be real here. And then when it comes to her actual heal, you have to aim even less than you do with her right click. And it penetrates and it does a crap ton of healing. And then you stack on the top of that she probably has the best movement ability / defensive in the game. It's not on cooldown for very long. It turns you invisible. It covers a great deal of amount of ground. What is the downfall of using it? Oh, well, for like that second and a half that I fly across the entire point, I can't heal. Oh, wait. My right click has lingering effects, right? Or left click has lingering effects. Seems pretty fair to me, right? No problems there. None at all. Now, I don't really have a problem with my result. I really don't. I think it's actually a pretty well designed ult. But I hate that she can swap to it so quickly from her amazing healing golden showers to instantly ulting and dealing damage to the enemies behind the tanks as well, because that makes it really hard to deal with sometimes. And especially it doesn't really merit a lot of choice from the Moira. Oh, I'm just going to ult now because it's a good time to ult. You know, she doesn't have to think about it ahead of time. Why can't it be something like a Kamehameha for Dragon Ball where she has to go Kamehameha and then shoot the beam? Like a second and a half where she has to charge it up and then fire it, because then she actually has to think a little bit. You can hear the start of the voice line. People can react to it before it actually comes out, you know, especially because she is very tanky when that thing comes out with all the regeneration that it gives her. You know, DPS might be able to be thinking like, oh, let me turn to her, and McCree might be able to turn and pop her with a couple headshots and actually drop her before the fight's more or less lost, while your tanks are falling lower and lower in health P through HP through the shields and all that. Hammond is just a giant what the fuck to me. You know, there was a Blizzard post saying, we're going to see whether Hammond broke the game or made the game better. And I'm not sure which side of the fence I sit on, because a lot of his aspects I do enjoy. But then there's just a ton of it that's just broken. His minefields, to me, seems pretty broken. He has a bug that he still instantly one-shots people, which is going to the World Cup, believe it or not, which is pretty fucking ridiculous that he's not disabled or changed, or that how that got through PTR, along with anything else that got through PTR. He's just when I haven't played him. So I can't give my full topic on it. From what I've seen, he's really OP. He's really overbalanced. We'll see what he does in the future, but I think this hero is going to be broken. Speaking of things that got through the PTR, Sombra's change. Oh boy, let's let her. Translocator lasts forever. Okay, checks out. Stealth lasts forever. Okay, there's some suspicion going on there, like the one eyebrow raised. We're gonna keep her movement in the stealth where she runs a Mach 16. You're like, so she's invisible. Her gap closer is forever available, and she runs at Mach 16, and she's a hero that can disable abilities. Everything check out? To the people watching, even the people that probably never played Overwatch, they would go, that sounds awful. And it is, but to the Overwatch balancing team, they thought that was great. Now, I don't hate how she is now, and I understand that something needed to be done, because yes, she wasn't that good, and yes, they needed to buff her. Why couldn't you make them just longer? Why couldn't she make the translocator last forever and the stealth last at the same time? Or, you know, longer stealth. But forever? Man, you gotta be kidding me. That's just too much. Way too much. And every single pro player and high-rate professional will rave on their stream saying, yeah, we didn't want this to go through. But they did it anyway. Wonderful balance team we have here. Speaking of that wonderful balance team, they put out Doomfist, the character with 3 force movement abilities and an ulti that makes him invulnerable, and if you place it on top of somebody that doesn't have a movement ability, they're dead. By the way, did I mention if you get tagged by any of those 3 force movement abilities, you're dead. If you get tagged with an uppercut, it sets you up to get shot and then for a right click. If you get caught by an E, you get uppercut and then he'll kill you with a shotgun. If you hits you with a right click, you're probably already dead. If not, he's going to be following up on it pretty soon. So, why is this character even exist? I get it. Blizzard team doesn't have a lot of good players on their team. They had the same problem with WoW before they hired some former good WoW professionals. They didn't know what they were doing, right? But once you get over the skill cap for like minimum understand this hero, he's just ridiculous. And what have they done to him? They've only buffed him. From release, he's only been getting better. What the hell, Blizzard? Hanzo changes. Now, everyone understood that Hanzo needed to be changed, right? He was very inconsistent with scatter. If he used scatter, he was very vulnerable to tanks or any dive, really, which meant his team needed to fully support him. If that didn't happen, he usually just fell over, and then that was the reason you died. He just wasn't a consistent character. So what do? Okay, well, what we're going to do is we're going to take away his inconsistent scatter arrow that used to one-shot things, and we're just going to give him an ability to aim and one-shot things. And you're like, well, if it's not inconsistent because he can aim it now, doesn't that make him better? And Blizzard's like, yeah, I think that's not good enough. We're also going to give him an escape. So let me get this straight. The thing that was vulnerable to team play before now has an escape and can just kill the thing that's jumping at it. Checks out, right? Yeah, not in my book. Why did they change Hanzo like that? It doesn't make any sense. Now I understand that something needs to be changed about Scatter. Scatter was a pretty bullshit ability, but Storm Arrow, it's worse. Why and especially when you give him mobility. I get you want to give him mobility. He's the brother of Genji. Genji's a super mobile character. That's fine, but why doesn't Storm Arrow do something like an overcharge effect, where when you shoot Storm Arrow, he then can't shoot for a little bit afterwards, or it takes all of his stamina and he needs to walk slowly for a little bit and can't pull his bow back, because of the weight or whatever, and he's strained on his muscles. Something like this that makes him vulnerable, because you've just made the character that's weakness was being vulnerable more or less invulnerable, because you have to commit so much to him, and if his team plays around him, then he's just not going to die, and you just wasted all these resources. It doesn't make any sense. You notice a theme of things not making sense with these hero changes? Here's another. Brigitte and her easiness. Now, I watched a video very recently of a platinum player going all the way to masters. Now, if I remember the title, I would give the guy a shout out, but I don't. She's too easy. Plain and simple. A platinum DPS player, I think he was actually gold, can go from gold to GM only playing Brigitte. I should just be able to stop it there, but I'm going to continue about this. Alright? She's really mobile. She heals a lot. Her E is like an instant travel E for some reason. It doesn't have any projectile and it over heals, which means anything that she would have lost by actually healing the person normally just goes into armor. Armor is actually better than health. What the hell? Why couldn't it be something like shields or something like that? So it wasn't even that bad. If you want to keep the overheal factor, why does it not have a projectile component to it? That way it actually helps if you predict when the damage is coming, and it's not just going to wrong any mistake that's happened. Then you get to the biggest thing with her is her armor. Rally. Where do I start with Rally? All the things wrong with Rally. How fast it charges. The fact that the armor stays forever. It's so dumb. The character itself. Oh yeah, did I mention she counters Genji? She can one-shot a Tracer. It's like on a 6-second cooldown, I think, that thing. It's so absurd, right? She has a personal shield. She can basically 1v1 anyone that doesn't have skill over mid-masters, because you actually have to hit her in the head to kill her, more or less. Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous, and I don't understand how she's in the game. You keep your armor forever with Rally, which means there's no bad time to ever use Rally, which is like, I don't understand why there's an ultimate like that in the game. Every other ultimate, if you just popped Beat in the middle of if you're regrouping stage after you won the fight, everyone's going to lose their shit. If you pop Rally, everyone's like, checks out. It shouldn't. That's just so dumb. It's so dumb. And here's the thing. I understand what they're going for, and I actually enjoy playing her quite a bit. But they had Hammond who has a control ability, right? Why couldn't they put the shield bash on a control ability? Make so the control ability empowers the shield, and then when she dashes with the empower shield, that's when it stuns. That way you can balance the stun separate from her mobility, and you don't have it tied to her mobility. Makes it much easier to balance the character. Makes much more sense of how you can actually use rally for mobility and stuff like that. Actually makes the character, in my opinion, much more fun, along with the fact that you have to remove the fact that rally armor stays. Speaking of changes that took forever, same as Brigitte's 8 months that it's gonna goddamn take to get this armor fixed, I'm sure. But Reaper's change in Wraith form came how late? Like a year and a half late? That's ridiculous, man. Like everyone was saying, you should do this to Reaper, you should do this and this to Wraith, and it just took Blizzard way too long to figure it out, man. I don't know how many times I saw the same thing that Reaper currently has suggested before it actually happened. Tunnel vision, tunnel vision, tunnel vision, right? They just didn't look at every hero on the roster. Speaking of not looking at every hero on the roster, they didn't realize what Devo with the original defense matrix, when they took it off E and made it her right click, would originally do. I'm just going to put this shield up in your face, and you're not going to be able to do anything through it. I don't care who you are, unless you're a Zarya. You're not doing anything through the shield. And guess what? If you're a Zarya, I got 500 HP and some healers behind me. Good luck killing me. What is that? What is that? I mean, they responded in an okay time for that, as far as Blizzard standards go. She's still most likely a must pick for most comps. Like, it's never like, oh shit, we have a diva. Like, she can be run with Orisa, and she can be run with Reinhardt, and she can be run with her normal partner like a Winston, and depending on the circumstances, she can be run in every three. I still think she's too strong just because of how defense matrix works. I understand how characters will move back and forth. She's in a decent place right now, but I just don't understand how you let Eat the World exist for a season. Same reason I don't understand how they let Hog one-shot Zaryas for half a season, or how they balance this hook at all. All right, one-shots are not healthy for the game. Let's just go there. Let's go there before I tackle Hog, all right? One-shots are not healthy for the game. Hanzo headshot should not be a one-shot. It should do a bunch of damage. It should not be a one. Maybe he shouldn't even have headshots. Widow one-shot, maybe I can live with that. I don't think she's the best design hero for the game, but I can live with, she hit me in the head. She had to actually aim for that and click on the right moment. I could deal with that. I was an idiot for standing still, not moving left and right. I can stand for that. Old Hog, where you had to hook and then turn and then pull in and turn back to get them close enough to one-shot, that's a fantastic mechanic. You want things technically difficult to one-shot. You don't want like a Doomfist or a Hanzo to one-shot. You don't want one-shot as easily as they do. You want it to be hard, like Widowmaker, or that mechanic for Hog where you have to turn and look away and pull them closer to you. You want that kind of thing. Instead, no, they're just gonna make it so anyone can do it. But if you do that mechanic, yeah, you'll just one-shot at Zarya. Checks out, right? Just dumb. And the thing that bugs me is they do good reworks. They do fantastic reworks in some cases. Sims rework, absolutely phenomenal in my opinion. There's heroes that they never had to rework. Look at Lucio. Have you ever complained about Lucio? Yeah, they've adjusted his values, but they've never really broke the character in any way. Lucio's just always been good or bad, and that just comes down to how much healing he does compared to the rest of the thing. It's never been a design issue, really. Like, initially, he was too good not to, like, bring speed with, but then stuff like Mercy and Zen came out, and, like, that combo is pretty good, and you'd be willing to drop a Lucio depending on the situation for those. There's still things that shouldn't exist, like, Reinhardt was one of the first characters they ever made, and his shatter still doesn't work at all. And I get it's a hard game to balance, but I think you should be able to figure out Reinhardt's shatter and not make him the buggiest ultimate character in the entire game. Like, I'm pretty sure I could hit somebody right in front of me and they'll stay up, and then I'll hit somebody in the corner of the map out of my line of sight around 15 corners and they'll get shattered. that's just a few of the problems I have with the characters that overall this time. Like, there's plenty other things that I could address, but I just want to discredit their balanced team and show what a chaos and anarchy looks like at a game development studio, because that's what it is. It's awful. Let's get into some gameplay stuff though. Like, what is the play of the game system? In the last 15 matches you've watched, how many play of the games did you watch and go, yeah, that was a play? Because for me, it was 4 out of 15. That's pretty pathetic. The rest of the time, I was just typing what in chat. And you know what? 10 out of the last 15 games I played was me, because I was tryharding in goddamn Mystery Heroes. Yeah, pretty bad. I get it. At one point, all we saw was Mercy Resistance, and it's better than that, but it's by far not good at all. The medal system. Oh, dear. Oh, God. I could just rant and rave about this, but let's keep this as short as I possibly can for the medals, right? So, medals, either bronze, gold, or silver, right? You can't see what the others are. You just know what your own stats are, right? Why can't you see what your teammates' stats are? I want to know how much more damage I'm doing than my partner, because I want to know if his positioning is the problem, whether he can't see line of sights. If he's playing Soldier 76 and I have gold damage, am I popping off, or is he standing in bad line of sights? And I don't know that, because I don't know the damage between us. I could have just passed him in the last fight with my Dragon Blade on Genji, or he could be like half my damage because he has no idea where to stand on hit scan. Something like that should be implemented in the game. You can see your teammates' ultimates, which was a fantastic change, but you can't see leaderboards at all. A leaderboard system needs to be put in. Please, for the love of God, put a leaderboard system in. Even if it's after a game, I want to know everyone's stats in that game for myself so I can learn from it. Not just, hey, I'm going to lord this over you. I don't even care if it's after the game, but I want to be able to press some button after the game or even in the game and see what the current situation is. Because if you're like, oh, I have all the golds I must have been carrying, then you look at the other team and the guy with gold damage had double your damage, you're probably like, oh, I wasn't doing that good. He was doing that good. That makes sense why we lost. That's a much better system than how it is. Speaking of a much better system than how it is, what's the deal with the arcade playlist system? Alright, I get it. You want a system to encourage players to play those 9 wins for a loot box. I get that. But why are we limited on our selections? You've added all of these game modes into the game where they're not available at all times. Maybe a sadist enjoys Mayhem and only wants to play Mayhem. That's all he wants to play for the game. I don't have a problem with that, but he can't play it. That's his problem. Make it so 4 or 5 games, you play those for your 9 wins, and you get those loot boxes, and make every mode available. Speaking of what every mode should be available in custom games, why is not every mode available? If it's the middle of winter and I want to play Lucio Ball in a custom game, why can I not do that? I get it. It's a summer event game. It's going to be available with the competitive season in the summer event. But if I want to play with my buddies in a custom, why can I not set that up? It is absolutely mind-bogglingly stupid. I'm convinced that the balance team is torn whether to balance for competitive players or shitter players, because all the revisions go towards making the game more competitive, but there's lots of initial releases that are just making the game shitter for casuals. Brigade is for casuals, more or less, even though I enjoy to play her, and I'm more or less a competitive player. It's an awful state of where they just balance for people that aren't good at the game. And it's okay to not be good at a game, but understand that people that put in more hours are going to kick your butt. And that's more up on the matchmaking to put you with people that are more evenly skilled. The matchmaking doesn't know what it's doing half the time, so good luck with that. I would just prefer to get better at the game. I also don't know how they calculate certain stats, like win rates are just absolutely awful. I don't know how the hell they calculate that, but I'm pretty sure that's the worst math I've ever seen in my entire life. So some of the maps are really bad in this game. And I understand that in a competitive mode, you don't want a map vote in a competitive vote. But why is it not in casual? In a casual play, why can you not vote on good maps? I don't want to be stuck playing Volskaya and Junkertown on a casual play. I want to be playing good maps like King's Row and Eichenwald and Oasis and good maps like that. But most of the maps they add to the game aren't good. Like Ice Oasis and Eichenwald are very good maps, but Blizzard World, Junkertown, and Lunar Colony have all been colossal piles of shit for months after launch. You know, some of the maps that came with the game, like Hanamura, are just as bad. I really don't understand what they're doing with this. Hanamura, almost impossible to attack the second point if you can't force a better ult economy after the first point. After the first few fights on the second point, you're basically going to get lost entirely unless you get lucky and get a few picks. It's just awful. Oh, and then it's just more encouraged to play all those bullshit one-shot characters I talked about. Horizon Lunar Colony, the first point makes no sense. The second point makes no sense. They had to revise the map, and it's better now, but the first point is still very awkwardly built. I actually like it as a map now, but it's not a good map. I can tell you that. Blizzard World's second point makes zero sense. Why did they put the defender spawn there? Why did they build the map as it is? There's almost no way that the attackers, if they're down on people, can like recontest that map, especially dealing with some of the sight lines. Why did they not push the second defender spawn back into the third, just around into the past the third point gate, like that big oval, into the cave on the right side? There's a little side room with a health pack in it. They could have expanded that room and put the spawn there. That would maybe the defenders have to come a little bit further and not immediately into a sight line. So stuff like Widowmaker would probably be less strong and stuff like that map, and it'd be harder to actually like contest the payload constantly. Volskaya, it's just a 2CP map, and 2CP is just awful. I would avoid 2CP as much as I could if I had a map vote, but I don't have a map vote. Junkertown, the original of the pirate ships. Basically, first point, you only get one fight, which is, I think, one of the only maps in the game where first point you get only one fight. And other than that, it's just pure luck. And second point, you have to fight everyone on high ground, while everyone's on low ground, unless you run full dive. And even at that, you have to use your abilities to get to high ground. So what is that? It's so hard for second point defenders to attack that. And then third point, it's, oh, hey, look, defenders have lots of control on this high point, and we don't have much. So we have to really win the ground war, like really hard. Or, you know, get lucky and play Hanzo and Widow and just headshot everything, because that's really the only option you have and where the double sniper originally came from. Watching system in the game. So the game is admittedly balanced around Owl, and I understand that it has to be, especially because they want to make money on this. But, so how do you watch Owl? Right? You go to Twitch. There's an in-game link to Twitch through the game, right? And you're like, well, that's interesting. Why can't I watch it in the game? All right? Why can't they make a partnership and broadcast it to the game? Really makes no sense why they couldn't. Why can I not watch individual player perspectives? What if I just want to watch Dante on the San Francisco Shock run around on Tracer, Sombra, or whatever he's playing, but I'm stuck watching the overall thing? I could still hear the overall cast and get an idea what's going on in the fight and watch what I actually want to watch. You know, I could watch how nauseating Pine's high sensitivity is while he headshots people on Widowmaker, and hear everything else that's going on from the casters. It makes no sense to me that there's not an in-game client for watching the Overwatch, and it makes even less sense to me that I can't watch the specific players I want so I can refine specific skills I want in the game. It doesn't make any sense to me. Speaking of that, it doesn't make any sense to have no replay system in the game. Why is there not a way to save the game? You know how pro players have to watch their VODs back? They have to get everyone to record or stream the gameplay and then watch it all back on individual clips. That's awful. I feel bad for them. What is that garbage? Every other game, the competitive game, has some sort of replay system. You can easily see what's going on. And no, they just don't. Welcome to Overwatch and welcome to Blizzard. They don't want to do anything like that. Blizzard, the same company that said, no, MLG, we're not going to let you make WoW arenas a competitive environment. We're just going to screw you over. Doing the same thing with Overwatch, but people just don't seem to realize it yet. It's going to be a sad day when that happens. Why does the PTR exist? We don't gain anything from it because you just push the changes through no matter what anyone says on PTR. All it does is delay the inevitable nerf that comes to these overtuned characters that come out of PTR. It makes no sense to have it. And if you're not gonna use it, not gonna have anything for it, just stop being dumb, stop wasting our time, stop wasting anything we're doing with it, and just throw it to live. The only reason PTR exists is because of console. And god damn it, the entire game is more or less, here is the PC version. This is the superior version. Now, I come from a console background, and the PC version is superior. Get off your high horse and just understand that the PC version is the one they should. The PC version of the game is just what everything should be balanced about. The only reason PTR exists is because of console, and they have to do these stupid delays for the patches to get through with the companies. No, throw the patch out on the live. Whenever the console gets it, just give them the console. You know a game that did that? Yeah, and screwed over the console players, and is still a very successful game? 882, believe it or not. Yeah, that's a thing.